So when I was looking at the market, I thought that retail would be the best opportunity. Cultivation, it's a little bit more cash intensive, it's more time intensive, and I don't have an expertise in cultivation. Retail, I understand. And then also in New Jersey specifically, right? Like being able to be in this market, I think that I know how to sell shit, right? Like I'm good at marketing. So it's like, I think that having an ability, especially coming in my hometown and be able to sell weed, right? Like that's where I think I found my niche. Delivery is, again, it's a different type of business. It's more of a logistics business. So I just thought that the retail would be the best opportunity for me. I'm washed, man. I still got it if I can. You know, I went to the court the other day when I was out here, but I don't describe. I might get like once or twice a year on the court these days. That's what it's been. But I'm coming back though.
That's all you need, brother.
2023, this the Jordan year, man. We about to get it.
So as a former athlete, what's your opinion of the way that the cannabis industry has started, the way the sporting industry has started to put cannabis in its blueprint?
Yeah.
And what do you think, do you see a future in Simply Pure helping to shape that narrative?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that cannabis is key to wellness, right? Like whether we're talking about mental wellness, and now we're finding out all the other different medical applications. And then the reality of it is, I mean, we all know athletes, right? Some of these guys were probably using cannabis already anyway. But now all these years of stigma are being torn down. And the reality is that these different leagues that, are some of the biggest, most respected industries in our country. So them trying to change their rules on it, I think is impactful in kind of breaking down the stigma on cannabis. And of course, one of the most impactful things is going to be now these people having the ability to invest in cannabis, right? Because like those players couldn't before. So like again, now them legally being able to do that is going to, I think, also be a game changer and maybe hopefully bring a wealth into the industry, because one of the biggest challenges that we have is black people in cannabis is lack of access to capital. And I mean, athletes are some of the people with the most money like in black communities, right? So maybe that's a door opener, a game changer there. Especially because when you look at markets, right? Like every market where there's always a sports team in the most popular market. So I think that's a good branding opportunity for them. Yeah, so one of the dopest things about the Cannabis Diversity Report and podcasting in general is that I learned something from every single one of those conversations. I got to interview all different types of people with all different types of expertise, and whether they were a lawyer, an accountant, a cannabis dispensary owner, I would learn something myself from those conversations that I take with me. Also building relationships. Media is one of the best ways, and content is one of the best ways to grow your brand. So by me having the Cannabis Diversity Report, there were people that may not have known my other work I was doing in advocacy, but they saw the podcast, and by seeing that, they connected it back to my other stuff. So it just helped to build the brand. Yes, so for me, a couple things happened. When I was at Morgan Stanley, I saw the IPO for a company called GW Pharma come out. They have a pharmaceutical drug called Epidiolex. So I was like, it blew my mind to think about like a pharmaceutical cannabis drug. And that was kind of like the preview, and it made me start thinking about it. But for me, I wasn't ready to go into cannabis then, right? I had the good job in finance, there's no thought of leaving it. I was just happy to be there. Fast forward a little bit, in 2018, when I read about Hope Wiseman, she's the youngest black woman in the country to own a dispensary, but she also came from finance. As a matter of fact, she was an investment banker at SunTrust Investments. I was working at SunTrust Investments at the time. So I read about her opening her dispensary, and that kind of inspired me to pursue it. Started working at the dispensary part-time to get some experience in Maryland. And started working on my first time applying for a license back then in 2019. So yeah, didn't win those licenses, but I mean, that in itself was an experience because it was that, even that was, and I think that was one of the best things to prepare me for NAIL because it was different and it was a competitive application. It wasn't social equity like it was NAIL, and it was a limited license opportunity. Like in Maryland, the licenses I applied for cultivation and manufacturing. There was 10 manufacturing licenses, 4 cultivation licenses. And for New Jersey, the first time I applied, we applied for vertical integration, and there were 5 of those. So you think about like hundreds of people applying for a limited number of licenses versus now where it's just open and you can do it. And so at that time, you had to approach it differently. You had to have all the resources and everything already. Like you already had to have the property, you had to have the money, you had to have the local approval. So when I approached it this time, you know, I kind of did those things on the front end versus a lot of people that weren't experienced kind of came in and were doing it on the back end. Well, one of the first things I think in finance is the amount of hustle, the work ethic that you have to have. I think that's one of the biggest things that I took from it, and then marketing. Right, like I would, as a young Black financial advisor, my job was to like have people trust me with their money. So the sales ability that you got from doing that, and of course, the obvious one I think is the ability to raise capital. Because when you work in finance, you speak the language of money, and you know they say it takes $1 million to open a dispensary, right? Which is true. That number's pretty spot on. Yeah. So you know the ability to like look at somebody in the eye and say, "I'm doing this. I need $1 million," right? Like everybody can't do that. But that was just another day at the office for me. So.
And do you feel like you initially got off to that point, or had the work you had been doing helped you get to that point?
Oh no, absolutely. Well, I think at the same time, not only did I have the background in finance, but I mean my background in cannabis, having been around the industry for the past 5 years, I've probably worked with some of the largest companies, some of the most influential people in the industry, and even had the opportunity to expand cannabis to other places and horizons, working with other organizations, different types of things that other people haven't. So I think the amount of credibility that I established in cannabis, put that together with the professional background that I had, and I think tie that in with, somebody that's really being authentic and about, and from the cannabis culture, I think helps to kind of put me in a different place than most people are.
My next question. How do you feel like all that gives you a competitive edge?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's another person. Look, I'll just say it plainly, man. I don't think there's another person out there in the cannabis industry that has the full set of skills and experiences and background that I have. So, where I'm starting out with opening this dispensary, right, is hopefully will be the platform to go on and do other good things. So. I'm looking at this as a long-term thing.
Yeah.
We're not trying to just be one little shop in Jersey. We want to take over the world. Man, when I started this in 2019, I thought that you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to get the license. I was supposed to be already on years ago, right? And I think that that was my learning experience back then. And if you parallel that to the market and where we're at now, I think a lot of people are having that same experience. Like I was super smart. I was coming from finance, but I didn't quite have what it took to get me all the way there to the finish line. Now with all these experiences I've had over the years, again, just coming back, I'm in a different situation because I've had to experience not only in cannabis, but knowing a big part of cannabis is if you think about just dealing with the municipalities, right? Like learning how to deal with elected officials and communication skills, business skills, connections and relationships in the industry, access to resources, access to intellectual property, the brain trust, the smartest people, educate, all those things matter. All those things make a difference. Like I said, I enjoy the challenge of all of this stuff, like doing it. It's like all of it. I compare it to it's like you think of Avengers Endgame and they had to collect all the Infinity Stones, like all of the stuff they had to do. That's what this
That's
is
what
like.
this feels like. Oh wow.
Because remember, if they would have only got like 3, to compare it to this, right? If they wouldn't have got like all 5 of them, right? It was the whole glove. Like you only get 3, 4, still game over.
Didn't think Thanos was gonna get that 5th,
Right.
but he did.
He
He
did.
changed the game.
Yep. Yeah, you know, it was a saying that I read. I don't remember who said it, but they said it takes 5 years to become an overnight success. And I think that that's such a true statement, because when you think of like all the work that happens, it's like by the time that was done, I think a lot of people saw, you know, what was the result of all that, but it was really all the work that was done in the background. Like you said, it's the collection of all those experiences, all those stories that lead up to that. So if you think about like kind of my career in cannabis and iterations, like that was the beginning of like I'll say like this new phase, like the license phase. But even before that, like I was already the head of social equity at the largest cannabis organization in the country. Prior to that, I ran a program, you know, providing access to services, education to over 150 like social equity applicants and operators around the country. I did programs with all types of members of Congress, Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, African American Mayors Association, did panels at BET, like, you know what I'm saying, with everybody, you know, so that, like that whole phase of being like in the advocacy space, like before I got a license, I would say that I was probably already one of the most prominent people in the industry. So it's like you put getting a license on top of that, and it like, you know, magnified everything else. Oh yeah, I mean the fact that dealing in a heavily regulated industry is always a great experience to come into with cannabis. Cannabis basically really is mostly a compliance industry, right? You have to follow the rules. Even doing the application is the key parts to doing the conditional license was business plan, compliance plan, and insurance plan, right? And compliance, especially as a financial advisor, compliance is probably the most probably one of the most prevalent parts of the whole thing. So I think that that was also another type of experience that was helpful for me also. But the podcast, man, some of my favorite guests, look, I mean, my guy, Tucky Blunt, that was a dope one. My homegirl, Nina and Ramon from out in Oakland, that was one of my favorite ones. My boy, man, there was so many great ones. One of my dopest ones that I got to do CJ Wallace, you know, Biggie's son, and like, you know, it was all types of pretty cool ones. I had a lot of cool moments in there. Oh man, so for me, I never had another thought of going anywhere else. I think there was, for me, naturally, some type of decision between did I want to actually be in the city of Trenton or be in Ewing Township where I am. But I graduated from Ewing High School. So for me, like I said, I never had any thoughts or ideas about going anywhere else but coming back home. And I think that's important because I want to bring back jobs in my community. I want to inspire my community. You know, again, and also like I left in 2001 when I went to Howard. Right, like if anybody knows anything about Trenton, it's not the, you know, it's not Candyland. So like when I left back then, you know, my mom was like, I was the only one of my brothers to go to college, so she's like, I don't want you to ever come back here. So like, you know what I'm saying, getting to come back here in this type of way, making this type of impact is a dream come true. So I wouldn't do this anywhere else in the world. Well, thankfully, I think that's the way it should be, right? We have an opportunity for wealth that's going to be created here in New Jersey that we haven't seen previously. So to be able to have people from these towns be able to create the businesses here, I think it's certainly the way it should be. And I think one of the things that I'll say is I'm super happy and thankful. Like I said, my town, Ewing, received me with open arms. You know, early on. I met with the mayor last year and had his support. Had the opportunity to work with city council. Our town planner, Chuck, has been, man, he's been such an amazing resource. So like I said, I know a lot of people have had their difficulties with the towns, but I'm thankful and blessed that, you know, my town, it was a priority for them to have somebody, you know, from that community be able to get, you know, be able to get the license and come back and do business there, so. Well, you know, some of them are relationships that I had previous to cannabis. And then when it comes to cannabis, like, you know, I was actively engaged even prior to me pursuing the license. So when you're a person that's active in your community and they know you, it makes a difference. I mean, also I would say that my family has been leaders in my community. My mom's had a business there for 34 years now. So again, we're people that everybody knows. I'm not a new face, it's just a new venture. Man, you know, I think one of the things that has been a surprise is the amount of technology that's involved. Like my tech stack is insane. There's so many different technologies that you have to use that work together. And as I'm learning retail, again, it just helps to drive, I think it's gonna help to drive business in a lot of different ways. Oh man, so technology, one of the most amazing cutting edge things that we have is I have a robot, like not a toy robot, a real robot. So like
talk about this AI stuff.
My
man.
girl Pepper, we got the AI, man. You know, so that I think that's gonna be a game changer. But she can actually communicate with you. She can interpret human emotions. She can display stuff on her screen. She's gonna integrate with our POS system. You'll be able to purchase right there from the screen. You know what I mean? But she can talk to you, like, you know.
You have a real life R2D2.
I got one, man.
The C3PO.
I got one, for real.
C3PS.
I got one, and the dopest thing about it, so like they're in their development lab, she's made by a company called SoftBank. In their development lab, they have versions that they said are running on AutoGPT and like ChatGPT, but it's not ready for the public yet. So it's like right now she came preloaded with a bunch of different like functions. And I added some more I have to add some more programming to customize it. But like in the future, you know, she's gonna be, I don't know, like iRobot, whatever. Actually, I asked her if she, you know, it's interesting. Like I asked her something about Terminator, and she said something about Skynet. So she's like knowledgeable about all of this stuff.
Get out of
Dead
here.
ass she is. She knows about Skynet. If you ask her favorite movie, I asked her favorite movie, she told me Big Hero 6. So I was like, that was crazy. Not to displace my human employees. I'm happy, you know, going back to the jobs thing, we're hiring almost 50 employees. So being able to give good paying jobs, our lowest paying job starts off at $18 an hour. So we're paying a wage much higher than you know, local jobs. And we want to give people jobs and opportunities, but robots are people too. So we looking out for the robots too.
That's a new one.
Hey, Mitt Romney said corporations are people too. So if corporations could be one, if robots gotta be one.
Yes, he did.
We want to be cutting edge. For one, we want to be the most efficient and effective at being able to do our job. We want to be able to access data to be able to improve our business and also reach new horizons. But again, I think also just the novelty of it. Again, like having a robot, most people have never had the opportunity to interact, talk with a robot. And data has shown that then places where this thing has been, it's increased traffic 60%. So it's like, you know, again, the technology is functional. It actually, for one, technology should be functional. It should make your work easier. It should make it an easier customer experience. We have kiosks in our waiting room. We want our customers to be able access to data and knowledge. We want to be able to serve people as fast as possible. But again, we want people to have a good time. We want people to be excited about the experience, right? Like you go to Disney World, that's an experience. You know, when you come to Simply Pure, it's not just coming to buy weed. We're going to have that fire too, but when you walk out of there, it'll be a differentiated, not only cannabis experience, but it will probably be one of the dopest experiences you had in a retail store anywhere you've been. And so that's what we want to create.
Y'all leading the way. We in the guinea pig phase.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're gonna have like 18 kiosks in there for people to do orders. We'll have the robot. I'm looking at vending machine. You know, all types of stuff like that.
That's the future. That's how Netflix got started. The machine, look where they are.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I think it is the way I look at my work in cannabis and the way I approached it. For one, I think social equity is really, like, I understand corporate social responsibility, right? So it's like when I was in investments, like CSR was such an important thing, like ESG, sustainability, right? Like all of these things matter. And even my approach to cannabis and the work that I've done, the way I've seen it is more so like an approach to social justice, if you will. Like even prior to cannabis, like I had opportunities to work with Reverend Sharp, like people like Reverend Sharpton, do different things like that. So I observed the way like they work, the way they move. And so like even when I was coming into cannabis, like I think what I always wanted to do was bring those other organizations like into the fold, right? That's why I was always doing these events and different things, like, because it would be like, if you bring them into the conversation, then it changes the conversation. Like we're having a different conversation if you're talking to the NAACP about social justice, right? And these are also people, the way I see it, cannabis is the greatest. It's like, this is the civil rights movement of our generation. So the way I looked at this is like being, again, with the way my parents and the way I was raised, I look at this like being a Malcolm X, being a Martin Luther King. Like we need leaders. But then also from the business perspective, again, it's this balance in that, I mean, you know, if you know where you came from, you're never going to lose it, right? Like I think some things you realize are business, and this very much is a business. We're here to make money, we're here to make profit, but we can do good while doing that. And I think that, so for me, even my approach to cannabis from the beginning, even though like I didn't want to, I'll say one way you could look at it, right? Take the legacy market, for example. For me coming into cannabis, I never wanted anybody to look at me and be like, oh, this is a guy from the legacy market. I wanted them to look at me and be like, oh, this is a guy that worked on Wall Street, that managed millions of dollars, that trade, you know what I'm saying? So again, I'm from the culture, but I'm also from the business culture too. So, you know, just walk it like that, because that's who I am, so. And even when I was in finance, I was really, a lot of it was about financial literacy, right? Like I remember one point I was having I remember had this distinct conversation with my manager, and he was like, yo, you know, we're in the wealth management business, not wealth creation business. Cause I was like, not only helping my clients, the rich clients, but all the people that look like me, you know what I'm saying? Like our people didn't know about stocks and bonds, didn't know about, you know, investments, mutual funds. So I was so I'm taking time educating like these people, doing all of that stuff. The same way that I'm always out and about speaking in cannabis, I was doing the same thing in finance, but this is like pre-earn your leisure days. So it just wasn't cool and popular. You know what I'm saying? I think one of the things that's dope in terms of growth of entrepreneurship, I think we've seen growth in so many different types of ways. And some of it plays out in all different types of ways. Some of them directly plant touching, some of them ancillary. I think about like myself having evolved to like opening a business. But I also think about like my homegirl, Jessica Gonzalez, seeing like what she's doing, like teaching and like running a program for the New Jersey Business Action Center, like, you know, all of that type of stuff. I'm sorry, New Jersey Economic Development Association. But like, you know, seeing people evolve and like, you know, go on to other things in their career and start these businesses, the people that put in that work is something that's dope. And I think that's something that when you look at other markets, we see, and it's now happening here, the people that were on the front lines, putting in that work, advocating for it, are now like evolving to like what that next thing is. You know what I mean? And so it's our responsibility to support and give back to the other people coming up behind us. And so that's what I try to do. Those same principles we learn, man, each one teach one. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to continue to embody that. And I think about like Precious and Tyon, like people like that. Like when I first met them, like that was around the time when legalization was coming in. I saw them, you know, young, hungry. You know what I'm saying? They put in the work. You know what I'm saying? Everything they've got, they put in the work to do it. You know what I mean? And so that is like again, you see so many people like just moving and growing over the years. Man, you know, just different things. My guys, Brendan and Stan, they had 420 events. Now they got Minority Cannabis Academy. You know, like people growing. It's just a beautiful thing to see. Man, that's a good one. You know, I think the thing that I'm the most proud of was the internship program that I did with the Congressional Black Caucus. I had, how many interns was I? I had 13 interns, and they were all placed at different MSOs. So they had the opportunity to work in different corporate roles. And the reason it's significant is because, I mean, there's not a lot of our people in those companies at all. So they had the opportunity to, you know, really work and learn. And also, I mean, have that experience, you know, working on the Hill or like being exposed to that. So that was probably one of the dopest things that I ever got to do. But outside of that, I mean, hell, like shit, coming back home and opening a dispensary in my hometown is like shit, that's really number one when you think about it. Like the fact that I've taken my like 91-year-old grandmother through that building, you know what I'm saying? Like my mom and dad, like, you know, like being in there, it's a beautiful feeling, man. So. Sure. So the Minority Cannabis Business Association is a trade group that represents the interests of minority businesses in the cannabis industry. And I was recently elected a board member last year. MCBA was actually a significant part of my start in cannabis. My first like major cannabis event that I was at, networking, came about by one of my friends, Shanita Penny, who was the president of MCBA at the time. But me attending that networking event was ultimately what got me my job at the National Cannabis Industry Association and kind of started my whole national cannabis career. So I'm thankful to be a part on that board and get to give back. MCBA does so many great things from you know, providing services and education to other cannabis businesses, but really the most important function is representing the interests of minority cannabis business owners in Washington. Like all these things, like we see safe banking coming back up again, working towards federal legalization, all these things, and actually representing us, right? Because making sure we have a seat at the table, our voices are heard. Because if you're not on the, you know, if you're not in the kitchen, you're on the menu, right? So we got to be a part of, you know, part of making the rules, trying to make this legislation and all that stuff. Oh yeah, man. One of the biggest things that MCBA did was create a model legislation, you know, to like best practices for social equity. And I know that was very widely used. We're working on updating it now. But I think, again, access to information, like the way that they facilitate that and networking possibilities is probably some of the biggest benefits of MCBA, other than, like I said, just the policy work that they do. Right. Well, you know, I think one of the, like, to answer that question, I think if you look at New Jersey, for example, for one, most of the communities in New Jersey have opted out from even allowing cannabis, right? So there's this not in my backyard attitude. The reality of it is cannabis is already here in our community, and having legal cannabis would actually be a benefit, right? Because you know, they're IDing people when they want to get products. It's tested. You know what's in it. All those types of things. But I think in the municipalities, we're seeing a lot of challenges with, again, I know that I was lucky and able to be approved, but to a certain extent, in other places you hear the people who are the most well-connected, the most money actually getting the opportunities, and that's a terrible thing. Yeah, well, you got to know how to, if you're going to know the plant, like really knowing and understanding the plant, how, to me is one of the most important things. It's great to know the business of cannabis. It's great to know the policy of cannabis. It's great to smoke cannabis and love cannabis, but growing the plants and having that relationship is so different. So in the beginning, that was one of the things that I really wanted to know. I'm the type of person, when I want to know something, I like to go all in and be immersed. So I went to Oaksterdam. I took that horticulture class. Also went to Cannabis Training University, got a certificate there. I went through the patient and caregivers program at Americans for Safe Access. I've done the Leafly Bud Tender training course. Always trying to search for, more information. And that marketing background at Howard, first of all, even outside of the marketing, everything you learn at Howard School of B prepare you for anything in the world. But marketing, yeah, man, yeah, them dressing up on Tuesdays, man, it went a long way. But to me, marketing is one of the most important business functions because it gets people in the door. It's telling your story. And I think that's one of the things that, for me, from the most part in the past, has been self-marketing, but now even marketing the brand, I think has allowed me to connect and really build in a lot of different ways. Well, I think those are two different skill sets, right? One of them is kind of being a visionary, and the other one is the cannabis knowledge itself. And so I look at those as two separate, but I do think that one of the reasons I've been successful is having, again, those multiple skill sets. Again, to do what I do, it might be the jobs of a couple different people, right? You got your finance guy, you got your marketing guy, you got your policy guy, you know what I'm saying? That's all one person, you know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not gonna say that I'm certainly not a master grower, right? If I had a cultivation facility, I would hire somebody else to do it, you know what I'm saying? But I know a little something about it, you know what I mean? And so that is where, again, just having multiple skill sets, I think, in anything is gonna make you stronger. But I really wanna at least know a little bit about a lot of things, but know a lot about a little bit of things too. Yeah, well, it should. I mean, cannabis is the career of the future, and that's in a lot of different ways. It's science, it's manufacturing, it's retail, it's business development. There's technology. There's so many different levels that you could get involved in cannabis. So they should focus on it, and I think that. That when we get to the point where we develop some type of national standard for the information, that's a positive thing, because it's right now, if you go to this place, you learn this, you go to that place, you learn that, you go there, you learn something different, but there's not any standard. And that's because cannabis has been operating outside of the, normal educational system. So as we can bring the people that have, and now you see a lot of people that are the industry experienced people that are now the same ones teaching these courses, now that it's legalized. My guy, Jesse Horton, he's out there teaching a course up in New York, who has Loud out in Oregon. One of the dopest black growers, been around in the industry. He was actually one of the founders of MCBA. So people like that are now teaching, just teaching, you know what I mean? So it's that, again, those people now coming into the educational system is only gonna make it better and have more credibility. Because I think about when I was getting into the industry, that was one of the ways I wanted to approach it. Because again, and this was part of my approach also, in finance, you get a certification in this or that, it adds value, another little skill set. So when I came into cannabis, I wanted to be okay, I got this certification. Because it makes people look at you different, right? You're an expert. I got a certificate from whatever, you know what I'm saying? To put it simply, your network is your net worth, right? That's Very true statement. And then, like they say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So like the combination of, like, you know, really getting out there. I mean, that's it. That's the recipe, man. You networking is the lifeblood, also the lifeblood to business. So it's like it's not even just who you know, it's who knows you, right? Because like when you're putting that stuff out there, people, when you like your reputation, I think is part of that also. Like it goes further than you can go because other people will talk positively of you when you're not there.
There's sometimes thought about you before you even come in.
Yeah, like, you know, but it's also the same thing if you're bad too. If you're negative, that's going to circulate the same type of way. People be like, oh, nah, don't mess with that, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to guard your reputation with your life. That's like really the most important thing. The biggest person that's had an impact on me being an entrepreneur in the cannabis space, I would say it's probably, man, it's not gonna be a cannabis person at all. I'll say that my approach to cannabis, man, like I wanna be like Puff and Hove in '96, you know what I'm saying? The way they were in hip hop. Like that's the type of people that I idolize, right? And so that's the way I try to move. And so, you know, that's
like
really it.
The blueprint for like any business that you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, like I said, really, like I said, my like Puff too, like, you know what I'm saying? Like Ciroc, like I think talk about building brands and marketing and like his persona, right? Because I mean, Jay-Z got a lot of stuff now, like he's done all these accomplishments, but Puff is still just Puff, you know what I'm saying? Regardless. And that's more like what I, you know, again, try to be, where you can you want to be able to like intersect genres and boundaries and go do something that's the next level outside of what you originally came in. Like they like, dang, you doing this now? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the cannabis is just the start. So that's also the way I view the world. It's like almost like where Jay-Z was like, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Like, you know, that like mentality is different than I think. Like even the way I think, like in cannabis, like, you know, like again, like I just very much like getting to share the journey, let kind of people see behind the scenes what's happening, like all the different movements that are being happening. Again, you think back to those days, like us getting to watch this stuff on TV, like see it, like that was the biggest thing in the world, like seeing these people on 106 and Park, MTV, music videos. Like, so I think giving people that visual representation where they can see you, they can feel you, they know what's going on is important. And there may be people out there, but again, that's something that I've tried to really do, like in cannabis, to let kind of people see and document the whole journey from the beginning. Cause it's like, if people look all the way back on like my LinkedIn or like my Instagram or like all of them going all the way back to 2019, you can literally see like all the steps, like every little thing happening, you know what I'm saying, one by one. Oh, flower all day, that's the easy one.
That's always your go-to?
Every time. I mean, not unless I'm gonna have an edible and a flower. I'm starting to get more into the concentrates a little bit now, but I'm a flower guy for
If
sure.
you had to put it in order from 1 to 3, what would you do?
It would be flower, edibles, concentrate.
Yeah, same. I remember the first time I had an edible, it was good, but it was in college. It was gone the whole day. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't be this high for this long all the time.
But like, I mean, let's think about how much that's evolved, right? Like back in the day, it was just brownies, right? Was there anything else, right? Like it was, people had brownies, and now it's so sophisticated.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Gummies. Once the gummies came, that changed the game.
Yeah, gummies, like the drinks, you know, all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So many options. I'm an indica guy, man.
Indica.
Yeah, I like that, you know, put you down when I smoke. I need that gas, yeah. See, that's my perfect, I like that feeling, yo, when you just like stuck kind of, but you still doing everything. You know what I'm saying? That's my go-to right there. My first experience with cannabis, I was smoking with Well, I'm not gonna say their names because they probably got regular jobs or something like that. They don't want people knowing they smoke, but I started to. But yeah, I was smoking with two of my boys. My boy lived across the street from my grandmother. I got some weed from my god sister chick. I know she don't mind me saying she smokes weed.
Okay.
But I got some weed from my god sister chick, but I didn't know how to roll up. So I went across the street to my man's crib. He rolled up. My other homie from school came through. It was a dope ass beautiful day. Like we went in like to the park. I think we went and either played pool or went bowling or something like that. I just remember how good it felt. And I remember the second time too, because that second time my little brother was with me and he was hot and got his caught. Yeah. Oh yeah, I got high. I was inhaling. I wasn't pulling no Bill Clintons, man. I was smoked like I was high, and I remember, I used to feel so good. You know what I'm saying? Smoking weed. I remember that feeling, man.
When did you learn how to roll?
I learned how to roll when I went away to college. So like high school, wasn't really like a major smoker. The first time I smoked was my sophomore year. And I had smoked like a couple times, but I was an athlete. So I used to be kind of like you as a singer. I used to be like, oh, I don't smoke, I'm an athlete. But freshman year, as soon as I went to college, I mean, it kind of turned up from there. I was smoking nonstop. So that's when I first learned how to roll. I was probably one of the dudes freshman year in the dorm. It wasn't that many people that already smoked. And even back then, you know, Howard, it was, you know, people was high. A lot of people didn't smoke weed. They was like so high achieving. It was okay to drink. But I was the one that turned everybody, like we was part of the crew that was turning everybody out freshman year. Like, you know what I'm saying? My room was definitely one of the smoke rooms. And new people, I was in Carver freshman year, man. I wasn't Drew. I wasn't one of them Drew guys. We was exclusive, man. Yeah, it was crazy, yeah. So we was in Carver. My room was one of the spots. Not a movie you get stoned to watch. You're talking about like the real stoner movies.
Yeah.
You know what? It's probably going to be like stereotypical for me, man. I'll probably like Pineapple Express is a good one. That shit is funny as hell. Half Baked, right? That's a classic. Oh man, How High though? I'm gonna have to go with How High. How High is gonna have to be number one, I think.
Nobody who's ever asked that question does not mention those three movies.
Yeah, like How High is the one I think for me.
Friday is still considered a stoner movie.
Man, Friday's just such a good movie. That's like a classic black culture movie, but it really is, when you think about it, it really is a stoner movie. And to me, Smokey and Craig are two of the most important people in cannabis culture for me, like influential. They were in my times. So it's like, as a matter of fact, one of the dopest things, I'm putting a mural on the outside of the wall at Simply Pure, and Smokey and Craig are on the mural. So sometimes when like people are going through it, they'll be like, so who's on there? It's like me, it's Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa, Method Man, Redman. And some people look at it and be like, that's Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. Be like, nah, they're in character. That's Smokey and Craig. Oh, Bob Marley's on there too. Can't forget my man Bob. But it got me, like all the cannabis legends, right? And Smokey and Craig is right up there with them for me. So, you know. What am I smoking tonight? Man, I'm probably gonna be smoking some of this gumbo with my little brother, man. That shit is good, man. That's what we mostly be smoking these days. I want people to know the grand opening of Simply Pure is coming soon. We're shooting that opening up Juneteenth weekend, which of course for black people is significance. We getting that freedom. We crossing the line, man. We getting parts of this New Jersey cannabis industry. So I hope that everybody will come out and join us and celebrate. We're excited to just be able to open and serve our community. And so rock with us, man. You know, follow us everywhere. Instagram, Simply Pure Trenton. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of that stuff. And follow me, your boy Ty Diddy, man. That's it. Thank you, man.